Okay, let's start from the beginning. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. I actually wanted to do something a little different today, as I've had many communications with employers and foreign nationals going through this process. Just in case you don't know me, my name is Giselle Carson. I am the corporate immigration attorney for the Marks Gray immigration team. And I have worked with some of you before during the prior lottery or via your current hiring. We are honored and grateful to be working with you. And when I said to you that I was thinking about doing something a little different, I know that many of you have questions about the process that you're all about to embark. And one of the questions in the presentation is going to be, how anxious are you? How much do you know about the process? But I am taking the time to do this just for you. So I want to make sure that you get the best experience out of this. I could talk H-1B for hours and hours, but I want to make sure that, again, that you get as much knowledge as I can provide you while you're here with me today. And I cannot necessarily answer specific questions about your situation, because then I would take the whole presentation just for you, and that wouldn't be fair to others. But if you have general questions about the process that you think that would benefit others, please put them in the chat for me to consider so that I can address those as I go through the presentation and make sure that, again, you get the maximum amount of knowledge out of this presentation, okay? So would you do me a favor and do that? And I also want you to use the chat, again, just so that we can keep the channels of communication going. This is a webinar, but to me, really, it is a discussion because many of you have experience and have knowledge of the H-1B. And I think it's a much better learning experience when we have an exchange. So let's try doing that. I am going to give you an overview of the presentation. Of course, we're going to talk about the cap and the lottery. Again, some of you are very knowledgeable about this process. Some of you are not. So I'm going to take kind of like a medium, a level of knowledge here so that I can try to accommodate everybody. So H-1B cap, what is it, what is not, what is new, process timelines and notifications, remote work. I want you to pay close attention to that. Also want you to pay close attention to the cap gap, employment, I mean employment location, remote work, and travel, also consular processing and general questions. I already did last week a webinar similar to this one, discussion with employers, because they typically have different questions, a little different perspective. So I'm doing this, which is kind of unusual. Most attorneys just do one webinar for everybody. I am doing this just for the foreign nationals because, again, I know that you have a different perspective and different questions. So I hope you feel very special that we're doing this just for you. Okay, again, because I want you to get the most out of this. Please be with me for the next hour. I mean, I have my computer over here, I have my other screen, I have my iPhone, but I am not looking at any of that. I'm all here with you, and I hope that you can do the same. Again, as I said before, every case is unique. So when you put your questions on the chat, just make sure that they're general questions. If they're very specific to you, I'm not going to be able to answer them. For those, just a little bit of background. I I've been doing this for over 20 years, and not just by myself. No one can do this on their own. I have an amazing team. Many of you have worked with them. Anne and Priscilla and Marina, Danny and Les. You probably have gotten emails from some of them or from all of them at some point. They're your paralegals, which are Anne, Marina, and Priscilla, are your go-to. That's your first line of communication because they know your cases. I am typically on the background. I talk to them every week and every day. They're very, very knowledgeable, and they've been working with me for a long time. So, and they're your fastest kind of way of communication. If there is something that requires my attention, know for sure that I'm here in the background for you all. And if we need to get on a call, I'm here also for you. So know all of that. So even though you may not see me or hear me directly in the communications, I'm always, always here for you. Okay. So I've been doing this for 20 years, again, with an amazing team. I have the honor of partnering with amazing employers that have hired you all. And together, I believe that we're making our workplaces much more stronger, diverse, resilient. So I honor all of you. I know as an immigrant myself, I know how difficult it is, how difficult this process is. So we have that in mind also as we are working with you. So I'm a two-time immigrant, not just once. Immigrated to Canada, then to the United States. I'm a Canadian citizen. I'm a Cuban citizen, an American citizen. And someone asked me the other day, how could you possibly go into immigration law after being through all that bureaucracy? And frankly, it's almost because of it that I'm doing this. I know the pains of the process, and my goal is to try to make it a little bit better for you as much as I can within the system. I'm also an endurance athlete, and I believe that also helps me to do what I do for you. I've done marathons and Ironmans, and that have increased my level of tolerance for pain. The pain that happens when you're dealing with immigration cases day in and day out. And part of my passion goes so far that I've written a book, Beyond the H-1B, and I'm currently writing another book, The Corporate Immigration Advantage. And again, I feel particularly this one coming up at a time where we're questioning the value of immigration. It is extremely important that we hear our voices and that the government hears our voices, because the United States, America, is a country of immigrants, it's a nation of immigrants, and each one of you brings a tremendous amount of value to our world. And as a whole, I use that energy, passion, knowledge to help you. So again, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for working with our team. It is an honor to help you, and particularly to help the employers that employ you, because it is a bold. Sometimes it's a bold approach to dealing with the workforce challenges, and your employers are there and they're there with you. So it's really awesome what we can achieve as a team. Now, so this is your chance to start talking to me in the chat. I want to get a level of appreciation for where you are in terms of, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very low and potentially very anxious, to 10 basically being very comfortable with the process and have a very high level of comfort with your knowledge of H-1B. I know that those two can be extremes, and it may be kind of difficult to judge whether you're a 1 and a 10, considering I'm asking you to do two things. You can give me two numbers, or you can give me one for an in-between, but let me see those numbers in the chat. Okay, awesome. I see some 6 and 7s. That's encouraging. 5. Another 7's 84. Okay, 5. 2. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Thank you so much. Again, that helps me, one, not feel by myself over here. I hear that you're paying attention, so that's great. I'm happy to see some higher numbers in the sense that you have good knowledge. You also have anxiety, which is totally understandable. And I want you again to feel, if nothing else, I feel that when you have knowledge, you have a better ability to manage the anxiety. And that's what I'm here to give you. Again, if you have general questions that you came in thinking, oh my gosh, I really hope that she answers this question, or this is really something that I want to know that would help me, please put it in chat. I may or may not be able to answer it, but at least if I don't do it today, I may do it on a Q&A later on, so that I do Q&As on a monthly basis. So you should all be receiving a newsletter that I put out once a month and a Q&A with Giselle that I put out once a month. And both of those provide you with additional information. And they're typically based on questions that I get, things that we're seeing. So make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the newsletters if you're not getting them, so that you get that knowledge, okay? Okay, the H-1B CAP process, very quick overview. It is the most widely used and highly scrutinized work visa. I love H-1Bs, and I really, really wish that we have more of them. That's conversation for another day. Not just wish, I know we need more, but it requires a U.S. employer sponsor. The position needs to be considered a specialty occupation. We'll talk about that a little more. For most of you, that's not going to be an issue, but for others, maybe, and I'll explain why. It is initially, so it's a total of 6 years with the first 3 years and then another 3 years an extension. It is possible to go beyond 6 years. And in fact, many Indian nationals, Chinese nationals, because of their priority dates being so far out, we have some clients on H-1B visas for 10 years. But again, that's a conversation for another day. Just keep that on the back of your mind. Fiscal year begins October 1st. So the H-1Bs that are selected here will take effect October 1st as the first day of work under an H-1B. There's something called cap gap, and I'll talk about that provides for continuity of work. From some of you have an employment authorization document that may be ending in the summer, and that cap gap provides the ability to continue to work. Again, it's further down in the slides. A spouse and unmarried children under 21 can apply for H1 status, H4, but there is no work authorization for them, especially at the level of just the regular H1B. CAP and the lottery. So there is a total of 85,000 H1B petitions per year. 65 are considered regular, basically bachelor's degree caps, and then there's 20,000 for U.S. masters. So those of you that have a U.S. master's degree get a little bit of a higher chance of being selected. That has been the case since the lottery started. Not huge, but sometimes it makes a difference. And every year, our the U.S. Masters selection is higher than the bachelor's, and many of you are U.S. Master's degree holders. So yay, you have a little bit of a better chance than everybody else. if the registration exceeds 85,000, there is the lottery, and that has been the case for many years, many years. It is a random selection. I typically get asked, is it truly random? Well, as far as I know, and I think we would have known by now because there's so many high interests involved that it is, it is a true lottery. I really envision, a machine with a whole bunch of balls, and then they spit out the numbers, because as your petitions get filed or your registrations, they're assigned a number. And that is how, we know at the end of the day who was elected, by that computer generated number. There's an equal chance of selection again, except for the U.S. Masters having a little bit of a higher probability. All right, the latest and greatest on the H-1Bs. Interestingly, and as I say this, I almost want to mark my words that, within a few days, we're going to start getting email after email from USCIS as to the H-1B process. I think they've been consumed with the transition to the new administration and whatever executive orders that they have going on, that they haven't really paid that much attention to the H-1B. Because typically at this time, we have already received some information about it. So far, there has been very little, if anything, released about the H-1B cap for this year, about the cap itself. What has been released, and became into effect January 17th, is some of the things that I'm going to talk about here. Now, the beneficiary-centric registration process is something that started last year, and actually was a very good move because it eliminated, I don't know if some of you were around, not last year, but the year before, where this a huge amount of fraud and tremendous amount of 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many entries per beneficiary. It was a true disaster. And based on that, the government decided to revamp the selection process and make it what they call a more centric, beneficiary-centric registration process, meaning that if someone is entered into the lottery, I mean, basically your lottery is driven by your passport, you're assigned, your registration goes with a passport. So if the same person is entered, the same passport number is entered, they're going to kick out those applications. So there's been various tweaks to the process to try to keep one registration per foreign worker, which almost less than, I think we were looking at 800,000 or so registrants about 2 years ago. And that dropped to 400,000 last year, which again, in the big scheme of things, it doesn't even match, the 85,000 petitions that we have available, but it's, it's big decrease. So it's good for you. We foresee the same beneficiary-centric registration. So my first ask to all of you is to make sure that you have a valid passport. Okay, we're going to need that as part of your registration. Then something else that became effective January 17th is this specialty occupation definition. We have always have a specialty occupation. That's basically what defines an H-1B. But what they did under this regulations that just became effective is they tightened that definition. So when we're filing our petitions, which we have done, this is something that we have been doing, so it's not going to change a lot of our process going forward. But we really have to tight, and if you look, if you were to look at the employer support letters and things, you're going to see that we match the duties with the specialty occupation so that they're more in tune with what immigration is looking for. Also, if we have a specialty occupation, say, for example, actually someone with an interior designer degree, that will be scrutinized much more than an architect or, a designer position that requires a bachelor's degree. Because there are some people that practice interior design that are not bachelor's degree workers. So that's going to raise a flag for USCIS and is going to require us, which again, we have been doing this because to some degree, we've been doing this for so long that we kind of know what's going to raise a flag for USCIS. We put in a little bit more specialty occupation work into some professions like interior design, like bachelor's, like just a general bachelor's degree in business. Those require a little bit more work. Maintenance of status, again, this is something that we've been doing all the time, but just know that now that has been codified in the law, that basically every application, they're going to be looking to see that you have maintained your status. What that means for you is that when we request your documents, we're going to be looking for your I-20s signed by you and your DSO or whoever signs them for the school. We're going to be looking for pay statements, not just the last 2, but 3 or 4 to make sure that you're covered in status. Any other approval note like your EADs, front and back, just to make super sure that there is no question from USCIS that you have been maintaining your status, because I know that we're going to be, USCIS is going to be getting ready to issue requests for additional evidence on specialty occupations and maintenance of a status. So just know that, be aware of that. Now, something that is of a benefit, but also can create some issues that just passed is the F1 to H-1B cap gap extended. What I mean by that is up until January 17th, maybe 16th, the cap gap for as long as it has been in existence. Basically, if you're H1, if you were selected under the lottery and you had an employment authorization document, say that expired June 1st, and you're selected, and we filed your petition before June 1st, then you're entitled to an automatic employment authorization through, it would have been November 30th. That's the way it was. Now, because they realized how many delays they have in processing times, USCIS delays in processing times, they've extended this cap gap to past October through April of next year. The positive with that is, yay, great. If for some reason your petition has not been approved, your H-1B, by October 1st, you can continue to work on this cap gap. And that's awesome. However, the practice of USCIS is every time they do something like this, then they extend the time that they take to process cases. For example, in the last 4 years, all of our H-1B cap petitions have been adjudicated typically by, I almost want to say by September, if not before. Okay, now some of them that were selected under the second lottery, actually some, I think we still have one pending, which is, it is what it is. Things just continue to extend. But typically they've been adjudicating them pretty quickly. With this extension, I foresee, and I hope that I'm wrong, that they are going to take their sweet time, and we may have some H-1B caps that when we come to October 1st, they have not been approved. And that's just bureaucracy, and it shouldn't happen. You will be entitled to continue to work on this cap gap, but if you decide that you want to travel during the holidays, which many foreign nationals do, that's going to create a problem because you cannot travel unless your H-1B has been approved. So keep that on the back of your mind, okay? The other thing that I highlighted in here is mandatory worksite visits. This have always been happening. but potentially not to the extent that we expect them to happen. And I put this here because it is very scary to have a USCIS officer show up at your home, and they will do that. I will be doing more trainings on this, but it could happen. So I want you to become aware, and nothing, you have not done nothing wrong. Your company hasn't done anything wrong. It's just now part of the law that they are going to pay some bureaucratic workers to show up at your house and make sure that you are the person that is on that petition, that you're doing the work that you're supposed to be doing. They're going to talk to your employer. They may talk to your manager. So FYI, something just to keep in the back of your mind. More to come. So this is an example of the specialty occupation that I mentioned before that is going to be more tied to, that we're going to have to tighten. So here's an example of a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. The title is not mechanical engineer. The title is software engineer. So making that relationship between the mechanical engineering degree and the software engineering, that the degree is directly related to the occupation, is going to take a little bit more work than, currently we don't have to go way above and beyond to make that direct connection, but now the law is requiring that direct connection. For many of you, this is not going to mean anything because we have already in the past done project summaries and things, even proactively taking care of this stuff. But just know that, again, it's just elevating the amount of work and requirements that are being asked for these petitions to get approved. And when we are asking you to collaborate with us, we're not trying to be difficult, we're just actually trying to prevent a request for additional evidence or something else that may come down the line. Okay. And the cap gap extension, I mentioned this in the passing before. Again, the pro is the benefit of it is that you're going to have an automatic extension beyond October 1st, which is awesome. However, if you decide to travel before that petition is approved, you may need to premium process to get that approved. Okay. Okay. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, I want you to take your phone and you can scan me, and you can do that because sometimes, depending on, it's a process for us to do these webinars, send out newsletters and do my Q&As. It takes time, and they cannot happen as quickly as sometimes. For example, I think I'm trying to remember a few things that happened last year. The quickest way for me to just get the information out was to put it on LinkedIn. So that's another way that you can stay connected with me and basically know what, you can follow me, you can connect with me, whatever, understand what, what's happening. Okay, key timelines and notifications. This is kind of a general outline. Again, we don't have dates yet. January, now, we're already doing this. Preparation strategy, due diligence. Many of you have received or will be receiving questionnaires from us, from our paralegals, basically saying, please complete this questionnaire. Upload your degrees, your transcripts, your I-20s, your EADs. All of that is part of the due diligence process that we've started at the beginning of the year, and we're doing until now and continuing. February coming up. Again, soon we hopefully will get some information from USCIS as to how the registration process is going to work this year. You don't get involved in any of that. The foreign workers, it's something that we do with the employers. They have the organizational accounts, and we activate them with them and link them to our accounts and all of that. So for your purposes, All we need for you to do is to, again, just respond to the questionnaires and the requests that you're going to receive from our paralegals to get the process going. March, typically, the registration opens and closes. It typically lasts for about 2 weeks or so. You do not need to be the first one to be registered. In fact, I aim not to be the first one to go into the registration line, because invariably there is issues with the system. And last year, I mean, it went on and on and on and on forever, to the point that the organizational accounts were disappearing, the fees were being paid, and the money just disappeared. It was crazy. So there is no first come, first serve, any of that. As long as you're registered within that period that the registration is open, you are fine. So we don't want to be the last, and we don't want to be the first either. So you're going to be somewhere in between. And typically what happens, again, we have 3 paralegals, all 3 of them have H-1B cap cases. One of them will go first and test the waters and register, 4 or 5 people and see how that goes. And we learn from the experience. And then somebody else goes and they do their thing, and so we do batches and we test and we learn. And we also learn from what others are doing to minimize the pain of the process for you, for our employers, and for our team. Again, I've been doing this for as long as this process has been in existence, so we've experienced it all. You are in good hands. And if you don't hear from us, don't worry, we've got you. And we have a process that has not failed us for many years now. And we will be working directly with your employers for what we need them to do. We will be working directly with you with what we need you to do, and we'll be doing what we need to do. So you may hear me say it's a 3-legged stool. Everybody has their role. And as long as we all pull our weight or support our weight, the stool stays still and is wonderful. So register, what you would know though, when we do register you will get an email from our paralegal saying, hey, we registered you. This is your registration number. And that's that. And I shouldn't say that's that, because it's a big deal. And so I'll take that back. I also believe in, it is a long process. It's a very anxious driven process. So we do celebrate the milestones. We celebrate our first 4 when those registrations are done, and we celebrate our last 100 and some when those registrations are done. So it's what keeps us going through this process. Then April, typically right at the beginning, typically over the weekend, USCIS does their magic selection. We do not email you, so you would not get anything from USCIS knowing that you have been selected or not. The communications go to your employer and to us. And it's also a very tumultuous process, as I would say. You get an email from USCIS that basically says something like, we've taken action on your case. Imagine you had 200 cases filed. Like, what does that mean? So you meaning us, we log into the system, and even your employers, that's how they have to log into the system. They have to go through various screens and try to figure out who was selected. When the selection closes, so please don't email us, was I selected, my friend just learned that he was selected or she was selected, please, we don't let you know until your employer lets us know that it is okay to let you know. Okay. because some of you are going to be selected first, some of you are going to be selected last, and it's just not fair to have some people excited about their selection and you not knowing. So we pretty much wait until the end to say, for our employers, we will let your employers know as we know, but we wait for them to give us the go ahead to let you know, and sometimes they do it, whether you were selected or not. Okay, that's just a process that has worked out and felt fair to everybody involved. Now, if you are selected, and I hope you all are, believe me, I pray for like the selection process to somehow be influenced positively our way. We would, again, we'll let you know, because we're doing this proactive work ahead of time, to everybody's benefits, because after the selection names are released, we have 90 days to file. Meaning we have to put all the forms, the LCAs, the documentation, the new special duty, whatever else, together for everyone that was selected. So it's a very, very active time for us. Keep that in mind. If you're selected, we're going to let you know. Typically, we would, at that point, we would have pretty much everything we need to put together the petition. Of course, there is, last minute things, and we would let you know, but don't reach out and say, and I will be doing, FYI, 2 more presentations. One after selection happens. I will do a presentation that is, I was selected, now what? If you're selected, I hope to see you all there. I will go through, this is the process, this is what we do, this is the timeline, this is what we need from you so that you're good. If you're not selected, I am also going to do, I was not selected, now what? So those will be out there for you to attend, and also, again, get some feedback on what is available. We will have more conversations, but at least that would, begin to give you some peace of mind and again, ongoing knowledge, which I believe is so powerful. Then October 1st is where potentially your status begins if your petition has been approved. Again, I actually cover all of this, when the selection notification and the filing period. So I'm going to skip this. Okay, I have one question on the chat. I also want to know, I'm going to take a breath here, and I want to hear from you. What have you learned so far? You can put one line. Just let me know what did you not know? What have you learned? Questions. So the question in the chat was, if a passport expires in May, will it be considered valid? May, yes, but I would say make sure that you start working on that passport right now. Actually, we have a pending H-1B petition now that is an extension, and she expires in about a month. And literally, I've been saying to Anne almost every time that we meet about that case, is like, is that passport here yet? Is that passport here yet? So please, we're going to need that passport number, is how you're going to get entered into the lottery. And yes, if you're selected and we have a different passport number, which we will when we file, is, we're going to have to explain that this happened. But again, for any of you that has a passport that is expiring, this is January, February, March, April, May, I would get working on that. Okay. Okay. So I appreciate, so some of the new updates on the timeline, the specialty occupation, so things that you have learned. So this is the specialty occupation, the new cap gap. Yeah, so yeah, those are all important to know. I also have a question about what happens if I change jobs after being approved, or if I get laid off. That's a very good question. If you change jobs after being approved, and that happens, I tell you, it's not I look at it in two ways. And hopefully that's not how you're thinking about it. But there are some foreign nationals that get entered into the lottery by their employer A, and they get selected. And, now that they have an H-1B, they decide, oh, well, I have a better opportunity somewhere else, and I'm going to change. To me, this is and again, I've been on your shoes. The employers are putting a lot of effort, energy, and time that they could be spending on someone else that is not a foreign worker on you. And I please don't take this the wrong way, because it's for you foreign nationals, because I would almost say 99% of the foreign workers that I work with are very committed. They're very loyal. They understand that this is a gift and an opportunity that they're being given. Employers have no obligation to sponsor your H-1Bs. And it's kind of a win-win. They win by having your skill set, your talent, your knowledge, your loyalty. That's the resilience, the ability to plan their workforce needs. That's what you bring to the table, and you gain this sponsorship that is such a gift. Okay, so I want you all to understand this. It is a gift for you, and I appreciate it as such. Now, there are some cases that I also get the emails because the foreign workers were not being paid what they were supposed to be paid. They're in a bad employment relationship. They're being subcontracted out, and this and the other, really horrible scenarios. And somehow or another, one of my clients, our employers, hires them exactly as the question. They were selected on the H-1B cap while working for employer B. They apply for a position with one of our clients, employer A, and they're getting out of a bad situation, and our clients are earning a good worker. And in those situations, I say, you know what? We work with both, because those transfers are not easy and they have to be very well timed. The transfers happen. In fact, probably every year we do about 3 of those H-1B transfers, 3 or 4. Someone was selected under the lottery by under another employer. They want to get out of a difficult situation, and somehow or another they apply with a position for our clients, and we work on those transfers. Rarely does it happen the other way around, that one of our clients has their H-1B selected and they want to transfer out. And I'm very proud of that, because again, I think this is a process that is a win-win for all of you. So I hope that answers that question. I probably said more, but I think it's something that you all need to understand. Actually, some of these questions, can I apply for a STEM OPT and the H-1B at the same time? Yes. And that may be one of the things that I'm going to go into. So the answer is yes. I believe there's a slide about that in here. Selected in the lottery, do you require to renew your visa even in the cap gap extension? No, you do not. I think I also talk about that in the slides. Now, visa could be looked at in 2 ways. So and cap gap is a very obscure concept that was introduced as first as a memo, and now it has been codified into the law. And it's kind of this fluffy status that doesn't really have a status. status because it's not a visa per se, it's just a kind of a status. So you don't need to do much except, and again, I'll cover that, except to inform your DSO that you were selected and blah, blah, blah. But in terms of visa in your passport, which I'll talk about, your F1 visa will not let you back into the country once you have an H-1B. So I hope that makes sense, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna come back to the chat after I cover some of these other questions, but again, I appreciate what the questions that you're putting here for me. Okay, information or documentations that you're going to be sending to us, those are critical. Complete the questionnaires, upload the documents. This is some of the information that you're going to be, and basically the site has, you know, the things for you to upload. You are also going to be getting, let me see, you're going to be getting on your welcome email, if you haven't received it already, there is a link to a video that I did a while back, but it's still valid, that kind of, and it was a combination of me and the paralegals as to how to complete the questionnaires and whatnot. So please watch that. It will save you some time. It's very short and it will save you time when you're completing your questionnaire. If you do have issues, you can email your paralegal and let them know. But watching that should help you through the process. More documents, and I kind of mentioned some of this already before. Your I-20s, they should be signed. Quite often we just get the I-20s and they're not signed by you or by your DSO. They need to be signed. They need to relate to, you know, if you're on a STEM OPT, I want to have the I-20 that approved that STEM OPT, or you're in CPT, I want to have the, you know, the CPT approval. If you have an EAD now and you had an EAD before, make sure you give us those. Resume, I put in here should be up to date, but I don't want you to go overboard with your resume, because at the end of the day, this just gives us a general perspective. This is not a job application with us. But it just fills in some of the things that we may not get by your questionnaire, okay? Work location is critical, and I'm going to talk about that some more because it's tied to your LCA, it's tied to your petition. Okay, work location rules. Okay, so now, because we live in this beautiful virtual world and you may be permitted to work from home, if you are, so say you have a hybrid work situation, which many do, or if you work from home completely, or whatever the situation is, your work location needs to be part of your, you know, when you're answering your questionnaire, and it has to be part of your petition, it has to be part of the LCA. So if you are in a hybrid situation where you're allowed to work from home and you're allowed to, and you go into the office 2 or 3 days a week or whatever it is, we need to include both the home address and the work and the, you know, work site on the LCA. So there's also this concept of MSA, the Metropolitan Statistical Area or Geographic Area of Employment, is looked at as within commuting distance. So, and I am in Florida. I'm in Jacksonville. I'm about 3 hours from Orlando, just to give you a perspective. About 6 hours from Miami, so I'm Northeast Florida. And if, you know, Miami or Orlando would likely not be considered within normal commuting distance, although some people do work in Jacksonville and commute to Orlando. I wouldn't do that. So, but if you were to, you're working, you know, you have an apartment now when we file your LCA and your petition, and who knows, in November, you move to a different apartment, or, you know, a half an hour or 3 blocks down the street or whatever it is. that will still be within metropolitan statistical area, okay? But if later on you move from working in Jacksonville, Florida to Miami, 6 hours from here, that is not metropolitan statistical area, okay? And that would require filing a new petition, which is very expensive and very time consuming. So we want to try to avoid that as best we can. So again, if you are moving within the same metropolitan statistical area, it's not a big deal. We may just have to have you put a new notice up, but not a big deal. It's the big moves that are a big deal. And you can't always predict that. If you think that you're going to be working in Boston and New York, we need to know that, okay? And potentially put them both in your LCA. If you don't, you don't. But just again, just keep that in mind, because I know people move over the holiday, over the summer and whatnot. So new work location within a new geographical area outside of the MSA, it requires a whole new filing, unless it can be considered a short-term placement. That's 30 to 60 days. Say, hey, you work in Boston, but Seattle studio had a need for your skills for 30 days. You can do that and no big deal, okay? Okay. As you think about what is your biggest takeaway so far, let me see what I left off here and what I can answer. The new cap extension and its implication on international travel. Yeah, I have a slide about that. No travel. And again, for all of you, I am going to say this until I'm like I lose my voice because no matter what I say today, sadly, I know some of you, maybe some of you that are not in the webinar, are going to email me about this urgent need for you to travel internationally. And I have a slide just about that. But the answer is no. If your F1 visa and EAD expired this year and you get selected in the lottery, do you require to renew your visa even with I think I answered that one before. Can I apply a STEM? Yes. If your H-1B is under process and if you get layoff, does the petition get void? Yes, it does. The petitions are tied to your employer. So if you do not have an employment with that employer, your petition, there's nothing to employ you. And that one is a very tricky, because there's much more to that. So, and especially if it's that's a complicated one. So I'm not even going to go there. I hope it doesn't happen to any of you. If it does, it would be a one-on-one conversation. Given that the company would fly you out internationally for work, what would your advice be? I'm not sure because again, I would not be recommending travel for anybody during this period. Should I submit all the I-20s with all the travel signatures or just the first one and then the STEM OPT I-120? I'm not necessarily sure what this means. All the I-20s with all the travel signatures or just the first one and then the STEM OPT? I would say send us all you have and let us decide. Do we need to travel abroad to get the H-1B stamp? Yes, you do. I will cover that in a slide coming up. And I know, actually, and I knew this was going to take more than 3 hours in a way, because I want to maximize your knowledge here. So hopefully you can stay with me until the end. So I'm going to try to keep moving through this. Okay, cap gap. We talked about, again, no, this is the way it used to be, ended September 30th, your ability to work, now that extends beyond October 1st. Cap gap reminders that this will answer some of the questions in the chat. It's activated not by registration. This is important. is activated by selection and filing, okay? So just because you were registered, you're not covered by the cap gap. Just because you were selected, you're not covered by the cap gap. It's only until your petition is fully filed and accepted that the cap gap comes into play. And that is really important, and I'll explain why later. OPT must not have expired. Your OPT EAD or your OPT or your STEM OPT must not have expired before the filing of the H-1B. It only works if we're requesting a change of a status, which is typically 99% of our petitions are filed as a change of a status. And that is why also the interference with work, with travel, because if you're not in the United States, we cannot change your status to H-1B. And if you travel, you cannot re-enter the United States until that petition is approved and after October 1st or whenever USCIS. So it's huge. It's a huge disruption of your ability to work if you were to travel, let alone other things. The work extension, and some of you asked this, how does this cap gap kind of gets activated? If you get selected under the lottery, and we'll let you know, hey, you're selected on the lottery, the next time I'll cover this on the I've been selected, now what? You need to let your school know that you were selected under the lottery so that they update your status information. And this is very, very important, because that is what provides for that maintenance of the status also in USCIS's eyes. So if the status was not updated, USCIS is going to look at it as you were not in status. In fact, last year we received an RFE because of that, because the school made a mistake. And we're like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And sure enough, the school had not updated status. And someone asked, should I apply for STEM? Yes, please apply for your STEM as backup. I know it can be a pain in the behind because you have to file within a certain time. You have to pay the EAD fees. If you need it, it's another gift that you have that as a backup. I mean, you're here to work. You're here to, prosper your career. And that's what that allows you to do. Again, the STEM application, as you all know, has very specific times where you need to apply. Make sure that you're aware of those and that you apply within the time frame. Travel keeps on coming back after the lottery selection, but the H-1B has not been filed. So this is, you were selected, April 10th, we know that you were selected. We know we need to file by the end of June, that's the 90 days. Something that you have to, till the world ends if you don't travel abroad between your selection and the time that, we need to file. My gut feeling and my answer in most cases is no, do not travel, very risky. And I have a slide for that. Possible in the last 4 years, we probably had 1 or 2 foreign nationals that had to travel and did, but it's very risky. So please do not email us if you were selected in the lottery and just because you think that you need to, it's complicated. After the H-1B has been filed, no travel. After the H-1B is approved, but again, before October 1st, when it actually becomes active, no travel. That period is cap gap, STEM, all of that is just very fluffy in terms of a status, and you may not come back. And you've put your whole career and your last whatever many years of study in the United States, the money and everything at risk for 2 weeks abroad. After the H-1B is approved, after October 1st, yes, you can travel. And I think I had one of these questions in the chat. And then to come back into the United States, you couldn't do it under your F1 visa. You need an H-1B visa, which will require you to apply for a new visa stamp at the consulate. Consular processing. Okay. This is separate from your H-1B process. Okay. So again, you have your H-1B approval. It's after October 1st, say it's January of next year or whenever you decide that you're going to go home. We close out your H-1B process. This is a separate process on its own, consular process. We have a separate charge for this process. Minimal fee is typically $600 if you want our help and guidance with this process. We would review your DS-160. We would provide you with information that you may need to know about the process. If you are anxious and you want help, it is worth it for what you get, but that is up to you. Just know that that is how we do it. And we've gone back and forth on this process and decided it is so important, because if you get a denial or if you get, it's so much harder for us to fix that than if we can help you proactively. So that's part of the consular processing piece. Again, this is way after all of this is done. In terms of general questions, other questions that I get, should I use premium process? One, I am telling your employers, I try not to do premium process on any of my H-1B caps. We have done that for the last whatever many years. And in fact, I think they get processed better than if we pay premium or you pay premium. So it will not increase your chances of selection to pay another $3,000 to the government, okay? So I would refrain from thinking that premium would help. Again, sometimes I've seen it as a hindrance to the approval. Very expensive, and if needed or desired, you can pay for it. I will not be one that encourages it. The best usage of your time and money is really right now. Your time, your energy, your money, all of it right now. Answer your questionnaire. Send us the documents that we need. This is the time, because if we are ready, which is what we have done, again, I don't rush to register you, but I do rush to file. In a sense that I know, because no one is ready to file, or not many, that USCIS's load is not that heavy at the beginning of the filing period. I mean, we've done this for years and years now. So we aim to file as many petitions as we can during that first month, April, May, that's our filing period. But in order to do that, we have to have all your documents, okay? And not having to follow up and not get a response. So that is the best. And so you'll think about this, you'll avoid $3,000 worth of premium processing, because those petitions quite often get approved very quickly without premium, okay? So that's hopefully a good tip for you. Again, when you think about traveling abroad, this is what I tell my foreign nationals. Between now and registration or selection and file, whenever you think you need to travel, consider that you may be risking your 5 years of schooling or whatever many years of schooling, your family's investment, your investment and trusting you, your employer's investments and trusting you, your future ability to work in the United States, and so much more, particularly now when we're just seeing this negative vibe, restrictionism about immigration. You don't want to be caught up on that if you can avoid it, and you have a lot to risk. So travel abroad, I mean, I wasn't able to travel for 5-6 years. Yeah, it was very hard. Families members died. I never saw them again. And I mean, I'm not saying follow my example, but I want you to know that I've been there, and you're going to have some decisions to make. And, you know, only you can make them for you. Something else that I get asked sometimes, we haven't yet this year, but I'm sure it would come. You know, you're in the U.S. master's degree, but you haven't graduated by the time, you know, during this. You completed a master's from a qualifying U.S. university. You have to have completed, in order for us to register you, you have to have completed all the requirements to file. Okay. So quite often, sometimes, not quite often, every so often, we get somebody that, again, the degree itself has not been provided for whatever reason. We will be able to register you as the U.S. Master's CAP, as long as we have your transcripts, you know, sometimes a letter from the U.S. university saying, yes, you have graduated. The only thing that is missing is the degree. Okay. Again, that may be one or two of you. It happens. So that's why I'm putting it in here. This, you may have heard me say this already, but I don't know if I did. I am a runner. And you are going to go online. I know you do. And you're going to read all kinds of things because it's just the nature of the process. Do not read everything do not take everything that you read online and take it as true. It's not. So, you know, runners move to the side of the road when the vehicle approaches. Well, you look at the lineup along the road. I don't think I would rather stay on the road with the vehicles. And that's, you know, sometimes when you go online, that's what happens. So come to us. I mean, I'm going to be doing plenty of these and putting out information so that you do not have to go out with the alligators on the side of the road. I'm going to skip this just for the time's sake. I have some false true questions here just for your benefit, just to make sure that, you know, you capture the information that I gave you, but I think you're with me. Okay, let me know on the chat. How are you feeling right now? All right. I like 8s. Some of you are direct messaging me, some of you are whichever way. So there's 20 some of you here. How are you feeling right now? Okay, awesome. All right. Good. All right. Hopefully, again, the whole idea is I'm going to skip the what's your biggest takeaway so far. If you have other questions, I mean, there is this QR code here that you can send to us. Potentially the best way is to work with your paralegals on the team. Hopefully this has answered many of your questions and not created more. The main thing, again, that I need you to do is just to be responsive to our requests. We want to minimize the amount of work that is involved from your end. I know together we can do this. We can do it successfully. We've been doing it for many years. And if you don't hear from us, it's not because we're ignoring you. We never do that. It's just because we also have to manage the cases that we have. We know what we need to do. We know what you need to do and what the employers need to do. And our work is more of a balancing act to make sure that everything, and if we respond to you on every individual, did you get this? Do you get that? We can never get our work done, and that would not benefit you. Okay. So thank you very, very much for all of you for being here. Again, I hope this was helpful. And it is my greatest hope that, you know, this is as smooth as we can make it for you. I am very proud to be working with all of you and for the work that you do. And again, we're here. We've got your back. Trust us. That's it. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.